Sean's place.
All right, let's do it.
Soundboard.
Get it started
Got a
off.
full one,
Got a
absolutely.
full one. Yeah, we're ready to go.
Well, Ryan and Chris, thank you very much for joining me today. Everyone, this is Bob Harris from Game Plan Experts, and we have a couple of experts here with us today. We've got Ryan, who handles a lot of our social media and is very interested in our industry and what we do. And we've got Chris here, which many of you may be familiar with. He serves on our advisory board. We're very fortunate to have him as part of our consulting team. And he helps us to make good decisions about the types of products that we buy and that we offer to our clients. One of the things that's very important to us is, obviously, as you know, is making sure that everything that we offer to our clients is well tested, well vetted, high quality stuff. And Chris helps us to determine that, functionality and things like that. We've known Chris for a couple of years now.
Yep.
And met him at one of our preparedness shows.
Yep.
And a couple of things that you should know about Chris. One is he's a wilderness survivalist. I mean, true sense of the word. This guy can get dropped off in the middle of Canada, the forest, and find his way out. And he's proven that because he's actually participated in a couple of episodes of Dude, You're Screwed. And so that's something that we really appreciate about Chris, is that he knows what he's doing, and he does a great job. So with that, maybe I'll let you guys say a word or two about yourselves and we'll ask a few questions and pick Chris's brain a little bit.
Shout to you, sir.
So thanks, Bob, and thanks, Ryan, for having me here. And like they said, my name's Chris Swanda. I am a resident here in Olathe, Kansas. So, a lot of people are like, how can a survival guy live here in Kansas?
Right.
But
Johnson County.
Yeah, especially Johnson County. But it just goes to show that it's survival's not only limited to the wilderness or the mountains or the jungles of the Amazon, naked, whatever you want to call it. Survival's just day to day, everyday life.
Yeah.
And also, and it doesn't have to be survival. And I kind of hate the connotation of that word because the media and social media and the internet nowadays kind of makes it less as serious as I think the words I'm trying to use. I mean, survival in its purest definition is, it's almost a life-ending situation, right? It's not running around in the woods chopping things with a knife and wearing your paracord bracelets and a bag full of goods. It's actually not making your present state any worse than it is by at least 1%, right?
Mm-hmm. That's good.
I like that. And so, TV and like I said, social media and the entertainment industry has kind of diluted it down and made it fun and entertaining, which has its good side because it's getting more people out in the wilderness and it's getting them to think about things in their day-to-day life. So, and I've already just deviated a little bit from the intro. So my goal here today is to help you and the audience, you guys out there, decide what are you preparing for, right? Everybody has an interest in some aspect of their life making it better or preparing for it not to get worse.
Right. Yeah.
And so, maybe today I can help you in the audience, say, hey, what are you preparing for? And let's just knock it around and discuss it.
Right. That's good.
And I'm glad you brought that up because that's and for everybody who's not totally familiar with it, this is just as relevant to somebody who's in Johnson County, Kansas, as it is to somebody in the backwaters, right? Because we don't really care about preparing people for some doomsday scenario. Like, yeah, obviously you want to be prepared for it, right? But the odds of you running into like a nuclear bomb are very slim. But the odds of you like getting hit by a tornado is
as a matter of
high,
fact,
right?
It's as a matter of fact, it's 3:45 right now. There's a tornado watch in Douglas County, which is 40 minutes west of here.
Right.
It should be here about 9 o'clock tonight.
Yeah.
And so, while it's fun to sit on your couch and watch some of these TV shows about survival, really it's the things you see on the news every single day you need to prepare for. And a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a good point too. One of the first things that Sean and I did, as many of you may know, is we wrote a book as we rolled out our company. It's called Your Emergency Game Plan, and Chris wrote the foreword to that book. And one of the reasons we asked Chris to do that was because we were kind of of the same mindset, and what we did with that book is think through about 20 to 25 different everyday emergencies and disasters, whether they be weather-related, man-made, who knows. But just thinking through the everyday types of emergencies and disasters,
Right.
fires, floods, tornadoes, earthquakes, hurricanes, whatever that may be. It's not necessarily the apocalypse, doomsday, etc. But what is it that you need to be prepared for, whether it's based on geography or your current circumstance, or really just what you are concerned about? And thinking that through, and as Chris said, making sure you put yourself in a better place if that particular event occurs, rather than putting yourself in a worse position.
Well, the thing is like people buy insurance for these, right? They'll spend $1,000, and then, at the point of purchase, your carrier will say, "You want to buy insurance for your phone in case you drop it." And people are like, "Absolutely, right?"
Right.
But it's like, hey, something could happen that's life-ending. Do you want to prepare for it? And people are like, "Nah, that will never happen to me."
Yep.
Right.
Case in point, last year, right before your guys' expo, right before the Game Plan Expo last year, there was some massive flooding.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember that or not. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
massive flooding. And one of my aunts, one of her good friends, they got flooded into their house. They had to go sleep on top of the house for like 4 days.
Right.
Maybe not 4, but it was like 3 or 4 days or something. Like, it was a decent amount of time. And they just were absolutely not prepared for it. Like, they didn't have any rations, they didn't have any water.
Right.
Like, they had to get stuff like dropped to them and stuff like that so that they could just make it through this. And this is in Lenexa.
Yeah.
Right?
And see, having grown up in North Carolina, we used to get hit with hurricanes all
Yeah.
the time, and I've seen what happens, when there's a flood. And a lot of people think, well, I'll just sit on the second story of my house, I'll get my water purifier, and I'll pump or strain or whatever the water.
Yeah.
But what people fail to realize is everything from ground level up to about 6 feet, or whatever the flood line is in the water.
Yeah.
So that's chemicals, bodies, poop, formaldehyde out of your
Animals.
carpets, just motor oil, the pesticides in your garages,
Right.
and most commercial, and not commercial, most retail, consumer grade water purification systems are not going to remove all of that stuff.
Sure.
Now, there are some you can buy off the shelf, and I know over at the retail location at Game Plan Experts, there are a couple of, which is the one, it's escaping me.
Probably
The
Berkey.
Berkey's number one.
Would a Berkey be able to filter through
A
that?
Berkey should.
Yeah.
A Berkey
Okay.
and a
Yeah.
Lifesaver, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
And the Lifesaver, and also, what was the one that was on TED Talk that pumped
That's the
up?
Lifesaver.
That's the
That's
Lifesaver.
Lifesaver.
So those will, but most of the off-the-shelf goods that you find hanging on a peg at your big box stores will not.
Right.
So you can't count on that. So either, number one, you're going to have to pre-store your water, and that takes proactive work.
Right.
Or you're going to have to actually go out and buy higher end if you're living in a floodplain or something of that
Yep.
nature, you need to buy a higher end, water filtration system and practice with it.
Right.
And
The
it's not-
practice part. There you go.
and well, see,
Yeah.
the thing is, you have, let's say, for example, the Life Water, right?
Right.
It's only holds about 30 ounces.
Oh, the
right?
Lifesaver, yeah.
Lifesaver.
Yeah.
So try to live off of that thing for 3 days, right?
Right.
You're going to get tired of pumping it, right?
Yeah.
So practice with it. See what works for you, what doesn't
Right.
work for you, or go ahead and just prepare and pre-store your water. Keep it somewhere in your house. So.
Right.
And what about Life Straw and Sawyer? Will those do about the same thing, or are those not as effective?
Now, I know I host a lot of through hikers on the American Discovery Trail,
Yep.
and I know a lot of the through hiking communities always carry the Sawyer.
Okay.
The Sawyer brand products, the minis and the squeezes,
Sure.
and the reason being is usually when you're in the back country, the water's cleaner than you'll find in town, because
Right.
we as human beings, we're nasty creatures, right?
Yep.
But about in the back country, you got to worry about giardia, a lot of other parasites, spores, and bacteria, and the Sawyers do work.
Sure.
But you got to practice with them. But the thing is if they freeze, those little filaments that are inside of it will break, and
Right.
it loses its filtered capabilities.
Right.
So, I know one of the through hikers I hosted last year, his froze, and he had to buy a new one when he got here into REI down the street.
Right. There's not always an opportunity to buy one, given
So,
that situation.
exactly.
So, we always hear 2 is 1, 1 is none. So
Yeah,
you've got to
exactly.
make sure you've got backup systems. So in our emergency everyday gear, we have not only a straw but a bottle.
Yep.
Right.
So we've got a backup system just in the event that one
Right.
doesn't work.
Yeah.
But back to your point about the Life Straw, there's good and bad for any system. It's, there's not going to be a one size fits all solution for anything. The bad part about the Life Straw is is you either have to put it to your lips and then place your head down near the water source and drink out of it.
Yep.
Or you have to secure a container to scoop up the water, make sure the life straw goes in it,
Sure.
and then drink
Yeah.
out of it.
Gotcha.
But then again, the Sawyer, as good as it is and as popular as it is, you have to back flush it. So unless you have the syringe that goes with it, or I know the thru hiking community takes the smart water bottles with the sport flip cap, you can use that to backwash with.
Huh.
But to backwash, you need clean water.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're dying
It's
of
kind of a
thirst,
catch-22,
it
right?
is a catch-22.
Right.
So if you're in a situation where you only have 16 ounces of water left,
Sure.
your Sawyer Squeeze or your Sawyer Mini needs to be back flushed, and
Yep.
you're dying of thirst. It's like, do you
Yep.
drink your last
Take
of
the
your
chance.
water?
Yep.
Right.
Which I would, because there's other methods to purify your water.
Right.
Or do you use it to back flush? So,
Right.
yeah, it's these things that only experience can teach you.
Sure.
Right? And that's why you have to practice these.
Got to get
skills.
out there and you got to try it out.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you recommend to do that?
Well, the thing is it's kind of like brain surgery or auto mechanics or whatever. You don't just buy $100,000 worth of auto mechanics gear and start working on cars. You're going to start off with your basics, learn,
Sure.
and these are skills that you can use every day. A lot of people don't know how to change their tires on their car.
Right.
How many times
Yeah.
have you driven up down I-35 here and you see a car sitting up
Right.
on the side of the road with a flat tire? No one's around it, So did their tire flatten out, and they don't know how to change their tire? And teach your kids how to do this, right?
Yep.
But start with the basics.
Right.
So, when it comes to emergency preparedness and wilderness survival, the first thing to do is practice being bored.
Practice being bored. Okay.
Practice being bored. And, this is me coming from a technologist background in these things, right?
Yep.
Go to any stoplight. You and the pack of cars are driving around. You come to the red light. What's the first thing everybody does? You see heads bend down.
Look at their phone.
They're looking
Phone.
at phones.
Yep.
Right.
We are glued to our phones nowadays because we like that dopamine hit. Every time that notification goes off, we're fear of missing out of something, right?
Right.
And it's eyes on the device. And you can see this everywhere. Kids are walking down the street looking at their phone. Moms and dads are looking at their phone. First thing to do is practice just not having your phone. I'm a weirdo. I go to the grocery store, don't even bring a phone with me, right? It's kind of like herd immunity. If something happens, everybody around me wouldn't be able to make a phone call, right? Go to your house one weekend, of course, with your wife or your spouse, get a pre-approval, but, turn off the Wi-Fi router and just function without the internet.
Right.
Just start off small.
And that's so scary to a lot of people. Right?
It is.
Like I think about that and I'm like, oh,
What would I do?
Well, it's a lot of
I
times.
can't check email. Like,
Right.
is my business gonna fall apart? Like, what's gonna
Well,
happen?
a lot
Yeah.
of the wilderness survival classes I've taught, that's the first rule is turn off your phone
Yep.
and put it away. Number one is because if your wilderness survival situation starts when you didn't have a phone to begin with. If your phone worked or if you're in a good service area, help is on the way, right?
Yep.
Right.
But it's hard to train for that. So to put a real stressor on people's brains is
Right.
turn off your phone, put it away. You are now in a survival situation.
Yep.
And you can see the first day, it's almost you can see people are missing that dopamine hit.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah.
You know,
having
Yeah.
those little
and they're like,
withdrawals.
hey, I'm going to take a picture of my
Checking your
shelter.
pocket.
I was
Where's
just
my
about to
phone?
say that. You're like, I would absentmindedly just check my pocket. Like, oh
You
wait,
see
I don't
that.
have
Or the
my
phantom
phone.
vibrations. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yep.
But people are like, hey, I just want to take a picture of my shelter. It's like, no,
No.
you don't have your phone. You are in a situation now.
I think for a lot of people, losing your phone is now worse than losing your wallet or your purse.
Oh, yeah.
Because you
Yeah.
got so much in your phone.
Yeah.
Well, it's because you're so dependent.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you lose your wallet, you call the credit card
can
company,
fix it.
you cancel it, right? But
Right.
you lose your phone, I can't call anybody. So
Right, exactly.
I need a new phone. Sprint. Oh, I can't talk to you.
But the point of the matter is start off small. It's taken me almost 30 years to get to the point where I'm at now. And number one, we grew up in a different generation where
Sure.
you basically had to make your own entertainment or you
Right.
actually go hunting and fishing. And nowadays, they talk about STEM education's missing today.
Right.
And really, it's because kids don't play outside. This is my opinion, of course.
Yeah,
that's
Kids don't play outside, and what these kids are missing are these little physics lessons, this experiential learning of play.
Yep.
Like,
Sure.
if I throw a rock, there's speed times velocity, and then there's gravity affecting on it. And then when that rock hits little Johnny in the eyeball, you learn about anatomy right then. And then, in the heat of the summer, at noon, that there's shade under this tree, and this shade moves throughout the day.
Right.
Whether you know it or not, you're learning about astronomy or astrology, not astronomy. But anyway, you're learning those little experiential type physics and science lessons that carry over into adulthood. I was reading an article about this heart surgeon, brilliant heart surgeon. Does not understand the basic of how the heart-lung machine works. Doesn't understand about the high-low pressure, the mechanisms in the heart-lung machine, because he's so book smart, but just doesn't have the common sense knowledge that that experience brought.
Yeah.
He was too specialized, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Well, and you hit it on the head there. That's the difference between informative learning and experiential.
Right.
Like you could sit there and we could read blogs about survival
Right.
all day, right? And I could quote you every top brand and ever, and I could tell you step by step how to make a fire. But I've never actually made a fire, so I'm not going to be able to use those.
And to that point,
instructions.
you'll see people on YouTube or on social media, whatever, and they'll make a bow drill or a hand drill or some type of primitive fire making mechanism. And until you've done that 100 times, you can't say that you're good making primitive fire, right? And even myself, I struggle. If I'm successful 60% of the time, I'm happy.
Sure.
Right? And some days it just does not go right. It just really doesn't. And just rubbing two sticks together, making a fire, sharing it to social media does not make you an expert. You got to do it over and over and over.
Yeah. So you've talked to us quite a bit about just what you're talking about now is starting with the basics, and we've had conversations in our store just down the street about what happens if for whatever reason we can't get home, and so not only thinking through what does that look like, but planning your routes and knowing what direction you're going to take
and actually do
what obstacles will be in your way, and then actually doing it, and try it once or twice.
Because
you can do it.
And I've my daughter, when we were living down near Spring Hill, she, even at her young age, she was in middle school, she would tell me if something happens and I have to get home, here's the route I'm going to take. Right? So she even, I guess, hanging out with Dad through osmosis. But you see a lot of people all the time. For example, the office I work in downtown is on the 15th floor, and sometimes we have fire alarms, and you see some of these women with their 5-inch Jimmy Choos trying to go down the stairs. What if it was a real fire and you have to run out of this? I mean, keep a pair of shoes under your desk. But to your point is, a lot of people, what are you preparing for? Some people are like, hey, I'm gonna stay in my house. I've got all this food. I have all this stuff. All of a sudden, you're stuck at your office 20 miles away, and whatever happens, happens. And granted, this is an outlier. Chances are this wouldn't happen, but an EMP blast or something where you have to walk from your office to your house. Are you prepared for that? And are you physically able to do it? I mean, can you walk 20 miles carrying 10 pounds with 1,000 other people that are trying to do the same things you're trying to do at the same time?
Make a good point is a lot of that also comes down to your health and your physical well-being, right? So that's something that a lot of people may overlook. You can have all the gear in the world, but if you can't, walk a mile in order to get some water with a backpack on, then you're in big trouble. And so just trying to remain as physically fit as you can or as well as you can. It doesn't mean you have to be an Olympian or a triathlete. But just making sure that you can, hike a mile if you have to, that sort of thing.
And do it without your iPhone or your iPods on. Because I've taught a class, before, and some of these big bulky guys that I work out in the gym all the time. Well, it's because they work out in the gym at 72 degrees with their power music on all the time. You take that away from them, and all of a sudden they're a little distracted, and things are not normal, and those stressors can kind of compound on you, and the more stressors that are compounded over and over, start making stupid decisions, you're not thinking clear, and a lot of this is just 90% psychology. I mean, it's just your mentality. Because most of the most survival stories you hear, like Ernest Shackleton, the best survival guy in the world, right? But a lot of the other survival stories you hear in the news are just average people that you're like, wow, they spent 9 days. It was the two sisters, I think, in Michigan that got stranded in the snow, and they lived off like Cheetos and some other things.
M&Ms or something, right?
Yeah, but for 9 days, they're not survival experts.
Right.
But they were determined to see this situation through.
Sure.
The shark fisherman down in Mexico, him and his buddy that drifted 9 months across the Pacific Ocean and landed in whatever island. He just wanted to see his family. It was just hope, holding out hope.
Yeah.
And it's, I like to say it's the survivalist paradox. People that train for this stuff seldom find themselves in a situation. Right? Is it because they're noticing?
Yeah.
Is it because
is that something subconscious going on?
Or, or you're prepared, or it just hasn't happened, or you don't put yourself in these stupid situations that would get you into a survival situation to start with. Like Aaron Ralston, the guy that cut his arm off in 127 hours, his biggest mistake was not telling people where he was going. Just going out for a hike. Right? Didn't tell a soul. And, even if he did tell a soul, what I used to do when I was in the backcountry of Colorado is I would take a sheet of aluminum foil and I would actually put my boot print in the aluminum foil, left and right boot print, and I would keep those in my car. So that way, if I was overdue, everybody knew where I would be and expect, what route I was going to take and where would I be at certain dates and times. But at least they had boot prints where trackers could actually see where you're around. It's those little things like that.
The what are you preparing for thing? I want to go back to that. So that's great for no reason better than the fact that this is all personal to somebody's situation.
It is.
Where they live. So what do you think? Where should somebody start? Somebody who's wanting to get prepared, they don't know what to do. There's a ton of information out there.
There is, and and this information's just exploded over the past 10 years with the proliferation of it in the entertainment industry. But it's whatever domains of concerns that you're trying to solve, right?
Sure.
So a lot of folks out in the country, they're pretty self-sufficient. Now, if you live in downtown Kansas City, like in the One Light Tower or something, if you're stuck there, where do you begin? Do you have water stored up? Do you have food stored up? And a lot of people don't think about is, what do you do with your waste?
Right. That's
You
a good one.
still pee and poop in a situation, right? And a lot of people don't think about, how do you handle that situation? How do you handle it? So, and really, we as in game plan experts can give you guidance on where to go. And it's going to be these iterative learning cycles. So back to my point is take a Friday night, just kill the power. You and your family, just for the night until Saturday morning, see what works and doesn't work. Try that again, a month later. Don't keep doing it every weekend because everybody thinks, Dad's a weirdo, But, do it again. And, you'll find, especially if you have kids, you'll find that number one, without their iPads and their electronic doodads, you might need to supplement and keep them occupied with games.
Sure.
Go to Walmart or Costco.
Board games, cards. Okay.
Yeah. Or, sometimes I know Costco used to have these 5 packs of headlamps for $9. Just dirt cheap headlamps. Just give your kid a headlamp and just let them run around the house and not be scared of the dark.
Right.
So start off with that. Start out without the internet. And then, a lot of people don't cook anymore. That's the biggest thing that shocks me. I'm a cook. I love to eat. You watch my girlish figure. But a lot of people they only have a couple of days worth of food in their house. And without electricity or infrastructure, they really don't know how to cook. I was consulting with a family one time. And, we turned off some power and stuff. And I was like, well, let's make something to eat. And they're like, I don't know how to do this.
Wow.
Well, they had a grill in the garage, right? So first of all, you take your grill out of the garage and, your pots and pans will sit on a grill. Sure. And, light bulbs started going off and it was like, oh yeah, we could cook on our grill, cook beans in a pot on the grill. They didn't realize this stuff. And then the same thing is, water's another priority,
Definitely.
Sure.
Turn off the water in your house. Go into your basement, turn off the main, and just see how long you can go without water. And a lot of people don't realize, you have a hot water heater in your basement that holds 40, 50 gallons of water.
Right.
You could drain that if you needed to.
Right.
Or if you have a multi-story house, usually your water lines have a a valve down in your basement.
Right.
You could open up a spigot on the top floor, go down to the bottom and open it up, and you could drain your house out.
Right.
And also, your toilet tank, the water in the top of your tank is drinkable too.
Right. Sure.
So just, be creative and see what works and doesn't work, and just keep doing that iterative cycle, and then see if you can go 72 hours, because, that's generally the
Right.
accepted rule is a 72-hour.
Starting point.
I like to prepare for, 3 weeks, because I don't want to trust on any infrastructure, any government
Exactly.
agency to take care of me.
Right.
I at least want to go for 3 weeks.
Yeah, and the government agencies, they'll
And-
be the
and-
first to tell you
Yeah.
that, in an emergency situation that, there's not enough resources
Right.
because we don't staff and equip for major emergencies. We staff and equip for every day.
Right.
And so in a situation like that, then, you could be on your own in a flood or, even worse, for days, even weeks without help. So,
Well, that's another reason, you as in the general population should look into CERT, and become that
right.
volunteer
Community
also.
emergency response team.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. They teach you. They do a really good job. Sean and I know others have gone through that program. That they teach you how to take care of yourself, how to take care of your family, and then take care of your immediate surroundings, so that like your neighbors, so that in the event that your neighborhood is cut off for whatever reason, could be a tornado and the roads, there's no access, or maybe there's so many casualties in another area that the minor to medium type casualties aren't as important to get to
Sure,
in your
right.
area.
And
so
that's-
you're taking care of that on your own.
And then that could be also part of your, part of your preparedness at home is, first aid, right?
First aid. Not only having the products, but also
Knowing how to use it.
knowing a little bit about
Exactly.
it.
It's not going to do you any good if you don't know how to use it.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know I drift a lot when I was talking, but what are we preparing for?
Yeah.
So at least here in Kansas, we have to deal with the ice storms, the tornadoes, and the thunderstorms.
Right.
And every now and then we get the fracking earthquakes from Oklahoma, and we get those 3.0 Richter scale
right.
shakers in the morning.
More
right?
and more. Yeah.
But the West Coast has to deal with mudslides and forest fires. East Coast, and that's where I grew up, hurricanes.
Hurricanes.
And so the thing is look at past history, what has worked and didn't work. You know your environment. With climate change, the climate is changing regardless of, if you want to argue how it's happening, it is happening. You might see these things get more severe and more often.
Right.
Now's the time to start preparing. It may be as simple as this weekend, scan every document in your house, put it on a USB
Right.
drive, and put it in your bug out bag, or at least in a safe deposit box. That's one thing you could do.
Right, sure.
Take pictures of your property. Walk around your house. Everybody's got one of these doodads nowadays. Walk into your living room and say, "This is my Samsung 65-inch TV."
Right.
And if you can get to it, say serial number XYZ.
Right.
And just take an inventory of your house, so that way if your house is destroyed or if it is burglarized, you got a copy of your inventory. You're going to call your insurance agent and say, "My gold bullions were stolen," and it's like, "Well, prove it."
Right.
Yeah.
Here you go. Here's my gold bullion. But at least have an inventory
Right.
of the stuff in your house in case you do have to egress out of your residence
Sure.
and go somewhere
Right.
else and it's looted or destroyed or whatever the case may be. That's just something else you can do to lessen the duration of the situation.
Right. Those are great starting point tips, because one of the things that Sean and I talk a lot about is your emergency contact list.
Sure.
So
Exactly.
making sure that they're not only in your phone. What happens if you lose your phone? It gets damaged, the battery runs out, you can't recharge it, all of those things. So having an emergency contact list in paper, in writing,
Right.
and protected in a place where you can get to it in an emergency, so that you know who to call, doctors, fire, whatever, relatives, you know how to get a hold of everybody.
When that goes back to my point about the iterative learning process, turn off your internet one night, just for 12 hours, or from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Right.
and use your device. Go, "Hey, honey, that book we were reading about survival, where is it?" "Well, it's in the cloud." "Well, I can't get to it now." Get out a notebook and say, "I must have physical books
Right.
right?
Sure.
Or what's grandma's phone number? Oh darn, it's in the cloud, or it's on some server somewhere.
Right.
And so, keep a running list in a notebook and just physically write it down. And have physical books too.
Right.
I mean, I've got probably 200 ebooks on my devices spread around, but the books I really like, I buy a physical copy and keep it in my library at
Sure,
home.
sure.
Yeah.
And I think along the same lines as maps, just have a good map in your car, just so you know alternate routes.
Well, it's not even that. Know how to read a map.
I know how to read a map.
I was just about to ask that. What do you?
Well, there's actual study that came out, and I'm gonna butcher this, but I forgot exactly all the details. But they said that we as a society have lost our sense of navigation because we depend on GPS and our phones to say,
Yeah.
turn left, turn right, turn. It's not. It's not. I know that basically this is north, right? You have that sense of it,
Yeah.
but when you rely on your device so much, you turn left and right, and all of a sudden now you don't know which way is east, west, or north, or how much time has traveled.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Used to, you could guess, hey, 10 minutes, that's about 10 miles if you're going 60 miles per hour, right?
Yeah.
Nowadays, you just blindly follow your GPS.
Right, right. And I know you're really good with land navigation. So, are there any tips that you would recommend? I mean, as a Boy Scout, you always learn, the moss grows on the north side of the tree.
Yeah, which is a myth.
Which is a myth,
Yeah.
right? So, what are some things? Do you have any thoughts? Just, one or two things to help people?
There's a book called Be an Expert with Map and Compass by Bjorn. I forgot the guy's last name.
Okay.
It is the best book on the planet. It's
Okay.
very easy to read, understand, and use. And go out and buy a good compass is on it, like $20.
Right.
You can get a Ranger, or a Silver Ranger compass, or a basic Sunto compass, and take it out to your local football field. Go out to a school on a weekend and practice just using that football field, right? And make a game with your kids if you want to, or your spouse, or your friends, and go hide something like put a quarter in the field, and then on a map, draw it out and see if you can navigate to it, and then write down and say, okay, and of course you got to understand magnetic declination, but as long as your map's oriented true north, start on the sideline here and say, hey, go 320 degrees for 50 feet. And then turn 0 degrees and go, X number of feet. See if you can find this quarter on the ground.
Sure.
And then, also start learning the terrain. The military used to use your hand, where you have your ridges and your saddles and your slopes. And, learn to read a topo map.
Right.
A lot of people, some people can't think in 3D. So when they look at a topo map, it's all these squiggly lines anyway.
Yeah.
But, practice looking at things from a 3D model and also understanding topographical maps where, if I was to draw a circle, 1 inch around a circular band, 1 inch around this cup, when I would look at it from above, you would see those circles. You need to understand, this is a hill on the map. Or, this is a drain or a saddle or a flat spot. And, just learn to read the maps.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
It's practice. You're not going to master this in a weekend. It's going to be constant practice.
Right. Yeah. So, a couple of things that we talk to our clients about, and we've got our little survey that we do on Game Plan Experts on our website, where you can go out and answer 10 questions, and we can give you some basics about how to become better prepared. It's your preparedness score.
Mm-hmm.
And a few of the things that we, questions that we ask, you to think about are, how many family members do you have? How many people are you preparing for? And sometimes that number will grow if people know that you are the go-to, right, in that area.
Especially with
So
your
plan
vehicle
for
sitting
others.
in your driveway.
Yeah. So, how many people you're preparing for? What part of the world or the area do you live in? What are the normal disasters or emergencies that occur in this area, or the ones that you want to plan for? But what are your biggest concerns?
Right.
Even if they're not likely to occur in your area, maybe you're from an area where it happened a lot and you just never want to have to be worried about that again.
Sure.
Those are the types of things. And then one thing that I think a lot of people, really two things people overlook is special needs and medication, right? And pets.
I was going to mention that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So those are two things that we see a lot of where people fail to prepare. They're thinking everybody, thinks about themselves, first and foremost. It's just human nature, self-preservation. But thinking about, your reach around you and who might need help and who you might want to help, and just thinking that through in advance to make sure
Right,
that you're
sure.
not just preparing for your own family.
Right, right, exactly. And speaking of pets, there's also you can look this up, but there's over-the-counter medications that are pet that you can use with your pets. So you can use Benadryl. If they have any type of allergic reaction, or if you need to calm them down, just like your kids, right? Shoot them some Benadryl. But baby aspirin, is a good pain reliever for dogs. Cats are a weird creature. You can't give cats too many drugs, but at least with dogs, there are some over the counter. So, if you do have pets at home, at least look that up and look at what over the counter medications you can use for your pets in the event of an emergency, or it's Friday night at 8 o'clock and your dog gets into something. The last thing you want to do is pay an ER visit for your dog, right?
Oh, yeah.
Get a syringe, shoot some hydrogen peroxide down their throat. They'll throw up what they ate. Hopefully things are good, right? And that's just over-counter med you can use. So,
Sure.
So look that up.
Okay. So any other final thoughts? Any other words of wisdom that you might share? I know, it's impossible to cover.
We could sit
everything
here
in
and
minutes. We could-
yeah.
You could write 100 books on this subject.
Oh gosh, and I've got 100 books written.
Yeah.
It's just I haven't put it on paper yet, right?
Well,
So if there's a ghostwriter out there, I need to talk to.
needs to the brain dump, right?
Oh gosh, the Vulcan mind meld. But and the thing is EDC gear. You hear people talking about EDC gear, right?
Yeah.
No, a lot of people don't follow the E, right? So
Every day,
And
right?
and
What
here's
does
the reason.
EDC stand for? Chris?
It's
Just for everybody.
everyday care.
Every day.
Everyday care, right.
And there's a few social media sites I kind of ghost on, and because I want to get a feel of the marketplace, right? And I want
Yep.
to see what people are interested in, because ultimately it comes back to me, and they're like, Chris, I want to learn how to rub two sticks together and make a fire. Why do you want to learn this? Well, because it's cool, And my argument is carry a big lighter on you all the time.
Yeah.
And the reason being is go to any office complex in January when it's minus 30 and the wind's blowing. What do you see out front? Smokers.
Yeah.
What are they lighting their cigarettes with? A big lighter. If there was a method to start a fire in adverse conditions, these groups of people would be using that method. Right? There's no excuse to carry a big lighter. Ferro rods have become popular over the past 5 years, and they are valid tools to have in your backpack. Don't get me wrong, I am not talking negative about a ferro rod. But let's say, for example, you and someone are out hiking, you knock yourself out. You're the ferro rod expert, you've started 1,000 fires with a ferro rod. And you're so confident, you carry that with you
I've
everywhere.
got this, right?
You got it, right? You knock yourself out, you're out cold, that person that's with you now has to start a fire.
No idea.
No idea how to start a fire.
They probably wouldn't even know what it was.
So, but give a 5-year-old child a big lighter, they can start a fire with it, right? So it's not, think about you, but also think about everybody else in your party. You may have to go to the lowest common denominator, the tool that those people can use, carry that with you.
Well, wouldn't you want to do like a Zippo or something like that? So that's
Zippos-
waterproof, right?
Well, Zippos are not waterproof.
They're not waterproof.
They're windproof, and that's kind of their trademark.
Right.
But the thing is, it uses naphtha fuel, and that fuel will evaporate, and the case of a Zippo lighter is not airtight.
Oh.
Now, a lot of people will take a bicycle inner tube and wrap around it,
Sure.
and that works fine. But the thing is you constantly have to refill your Zippo